Hello, I'm Amy. Thank you for tuning in. I'm absolutely delighted to be joined by Beth Reekles. I met Beth at an event recently and immediately sent her a message afterwards. And now that we've officially met, can I interview you on YouTube? Because I've been wanting to ask you for a while, Beth. So thank you so much for coming on and chatting to us.
Thanks for having me.
I've been reading your books for years. I did not realise when I met Beth, we started talking about the kissing booth, and I didn't realise how young you were when you started in publishing. And I think I did it the opposite way. Like I was in my 30s when my first book was published. So we've kind of had totally different experiences. So I think it'll be really interesting to chat about that.
Yeah.
And the fact that you've written for different audiences too, and that's something that I'm kind of looking to get into. So I'm doing this interview because people want to hear about your books, but also selfishly I want to pick your brain and learn how you've done it, how you've become so successful and had so many kind of different things going on, kept the adult and YA going at the same time. So do you want to start off by telling us about your new book, Do You Ship It? And then we can dive into chatting about all of your books.
Yeah, so Do You Ship It, with its lovely cover right here. It's my latest YA rom-com. It follows Keris, who has a huge crush on her best friend Jake, and she decides that the way to prove to Jake that she's his dream girl is also to become the perfect fangirl, because Jake is massively into this fantasy fandom. But the only spanner in the works is his new best friend Max, who is a huge fanboy as well. He cosplays at conventions and all that kind of stuff, and Keris is convinced that Max can see right through her plan to, persuade Jake that she's a big fangirl. But she ends up falling in love with the fandom all on her own and falling in love generally. And it's also a lot about, fandom and friendship as well.
I love that. I'm about halfway through. I was really hoping I'd actually finish reading it, but this year has just been ridiculous. It's just so fun.
And I think, do you mean you didn't read this the day it came out? What am I even doing?
It arrived the day it came out, and I've read half a book this month, which is because it's from the library. And I need to give it back, and I'm like, reading is just not happening this year. It's really sad. It's just sitting there. It's sitting there looking at me, and it's just shocking. I've got no excuse.
I've back there. I've got this huge pile of proofs that I need to read, and I've just been so bad. Like I've just been so burnt out in general this year, and
I think when you're busy reading your own book, you haven't got the time or energy for any other books, and sometimes you don't want the confusion of other people's voices in your head. And then other books, just like it is the proof priority. Like I've done quite a lot of blurb requests this year, and they have to go to the top of the pile, don't they? So you look up longingly at all these other books you want to read, but because they're already out, they're at the bottom of the priority heap.
I think I've read like 2 books, like just for fun so far this year, but then like 10 or so, like for work.
Yeah. The side of publishing nobody tells you about, that you won't actually be choosing the books you read anymore. They'll be dictated by deadlines and blurb requests. So I think I've read most of your YA books, if not all of them. You've written so many. I need to check the list. But this one, I was super excited because I love fandom myself. You can see my room is just an explosion of fandom. Like the Buffy wall is right there, and Nightmare Before Christmas right there. I love being parts of fandoms and like choosing people that have a passion as much as you do about something. It's great. So I kind of was wondering, is fandom something that you've been part of, and how did it come about that you included that in this book?
Yeah, so I grew up with Tumblr. Like I was super Wholog era Tumblr kid. So I've always really loved stuff like Lord of the Rings and Game of Thrones. I read a lot of Game of Thrones fan fiction. I enjoyed like Star Wars and all the Marvel films. Watched Supernatural, obviously Doctor Who, Sherlock. The holy trinity of Tumblr. So Tumblr was kind of my introduction to fan fiction as well, because of it was always like the Destiel ficlets that I'd see on there, or the Stucky stuff. And then it also introduced me to Once Upon a Time, like a fairy tale retelling show, because I love a fairy tale retelling. But suddenly, like I remember one day my Tumblr dash was just flooded with gifs of Emma and Captain Hook, Killian, and I was just like sold, absolutely sold. And I was like, they were my OTP before I'd even watched like a single second of the show.
That's amazing, though, isn't it? The power of fandom, that it can make you invested in something and love something before you even know what it is, and it can destroy you as well, because you can be really into it. Like, you could have been totally sold on Emma with, was it The Huntsman, in the first couple of episodes?
Yeah.
and then you see Captain Hook and you're like, oh, okay.
Yeah, but like the game has changed.
Yeah, that's really cool. So obviously, do you think that that level of joy and like what you've brought from it is what you wanted to bring to the book then? Like that this your characters?
Yeah, because when we was kind of like workshopping what my next books were going to be for my YA publisher, I had like a few different ideas, and I was talking to my publisher, and she kind of said to me, you know, sports romance is really big right now, and I was like, I'm going to stop you right there because I know nothing about sports.
Okay,
Like,
I think you should do that. Can you not do that, Beth? Just for the comedy at some point, can you write like an ice hockey book and just be like, they hit the little round thing into the like material thing at the back.
One of my friends is like desperately trying to get me into Formula One because she just really loves it, but a lot like I just don't retain it enough. So I said to my publisher, I was like, I'm going to stop you there because I don't know anything about sports, but I do know a lot about like fandom and Dungeons and Dragons. And she was like, yes,
okay,
do that.
I love how she went from sport to Dungeons and Dragons. I feel like that's very different.
Yeah,
parts of the publishing spectrum.
But I like when I was writing Do You Ship It, I knew that like my experience of fandom when I was younger and being a fangirl was very much because I had a group of friends up until around like 16, 17 when I moved into sixth form that we weren't each other's people. It's safe to say, like I was always the weird, boring one, and like I didn't really get included in stuff, and I was always like sat on the end of the row at the cinema, sat on the end of the table at dinner, and just not included in conversations. And they never were really interested in anything I wanted to talk about, like, you know, the new episode of Merlin. And
you say weird and boring though, and I say like this would have been me at school as well, saying like, hey, have you watched Buffy? And they go, what's Buffy? And I'm like just crying on the inside.
And then like I remember there was like a girl in my art class in year 10 that I kind of ended up getting friendly with, and I was like, oh, like you are the same as me, like we like all the same stuff. And I was like, oh, I'm not weird, I just they're not my people. And I kind of like had this moment of like screw it, I gotta like the stuff I like. It's not hurting anyone. I don't really care if other people don't like that. I'm just like really sick of like having to like squash it all down to be likable when apparently I'm not liked that much at that point anyway. So I kind of took ownership of it a little bit, and that was much more fun and much better. And you know, I definitely found my people, and I knew that I wanted Keris to approach fandom from that other side of, oh God, I just don't get it. It's weird and like being kind of judgy and superficial about it, but then her finding her own way into it as well.
Yeah, that's lovely, and actually that's really compassionate of you, because I think sometimes in fiction, like you can kind of err on the side of your own thinking. It's quite interesting to flip it and see it from somebody else's point of view. Yeah, I had a similar experience at school. I wonder if a lot of authors did, where I remember somebody said to me, you listen to Blink-182 and Green Day, don't you? And I was like, oh yeah, I do, thinking I was going to have a nice conversation. And he went, well, because you dress like that, you shouldn't listen to them. And I was like what? And I just had a big, and I think it's probably the first like fandom rant where I was like, surely I can listen to anything I want to, and you should be encouraging people to be part of the same community as you, not discouraging because I haven't dyed my hair black and, you know, done whatever you feel I need to do. So yeah, I've been there. I've had these conversations with people saying it to my face. And it's really strange, isn't it? Because to me, fandom is inclusive, and it's, oh great, you love Green Day, amazing. Let's talk about like ranking their albums from 1990, whatever to now. Like that's what I want to do with somebody who's a fan. I don't want to isolate somebody from the group. And that's nice that your book kind of, it shows somebody coming from the other side and coming into it and then starting to understand it. That's really cool.
Yeah, she also mentioned, like, she talks about someone else in the book, like another character called Anissa, who was definitely the weird kid at school. Absolutely, obviously.
No, who's she based on?
And my editor was kind of like, do we feel comfortable with like the term weird kid? I was like, as a weird kid, yes. Like this, there's no other way to explain this.
Yeah, I think weird girl has become a thing. Like I'm noticing on like TikTok and stuff. Like it's like weird girl fiction. If you've read Mayfly, like read more weird stuff. And I like the fact that we're taking ownership of weird. I think
Yeah,
that's
like,
cool.
it
I think that
it doesn't have to be a bad thing.
loads of kids will read that and think, actually, I feel seen. People have called me that, and like
Yeah,
take ownership of it. Like I remember geek and nerd was something that got applied to me at school quite a lot,
yeah,
and like now I'm like, yeah, I am. I
yeah,
love reading about my subjects of interest and doing
yes, and
my
isn't it
homework.
great?
Yeah, somebody sets me some homework now, like, can you research this thing? And I'm like, yes, I can. Thank you. Thank you for the extra work. Yeah, it's really strange. And I think that this is the nice thing about YA, isn't it? People feel seen, they will read your books.
Yeah,
And I think the other reason that people read your books as well is their romance, because I'm not sure if anybody's ever told you this, Beth, but you're very good at writing romance. Like, I love the fact that you seem to know how to pace it. What I struggle with sometimes with romance is knowing like what is the point where I think I tend to be a bit insta lovey, because that's how I felt as a teenager. If I
yeah,
fell for somebody, like I fancy them immediately. You're really good at spacing it out and knowing like when is the right moment for them to kiss. Like, how is this something that you do? Like, do you carefully plot this into a book, the romance, or does it just flow? Does it come really organically to you?
It tends to just kind of flow. I'm really terrible at plotting. I cannot plot to save my life. So sometimes my editors will ask me, like, if I'm pitching a book, they'll say, "Do you have the synopsis for it?" I'm like, "No." At this point, it would be easier to just like let me write the book and give it to you in like a month as a really rough first draft, than
I
write a
totally get it.
synopsis. But with the romance element, I think because like my favorite trope is enemies to lovers and that kind of slow burn, yearning, will they, won't they, and the banter and the tension that comes along with it. And even if my stories aren't like necessarily enemies to lovers, because I think actually I've only got one book, which my adult novel, The Reunion, that is enemies to lovers. It's that like friction and tension, and the build up, and also like the number of times I know they say don't read your reviews, but like we'll occasionally
Yeah, of
dip
course.
our toe into reading the reviews. And the number of times I've seen reviews that say, but this could have been solved if they just talked to each other. I'm like, yeah, but we don't, like, because that's a really hard thing to do, is have the difficult conversation and like put yourself on the line. So of course you're not gonna like just fancy this boy and then decide to ask him out by chapter 3, have your first kiss in chapter 4, and then that's it. Like that it's the whole middle ground that's where all that fun tension is.
Yeah, I think those comments sometimes come from a place like I was obsessed with Bones years back, and I just
Yeah,
wanted them to kiss more than anything. I was like, every episode, I was basically chanting like, "Kiss, kiss, come on!" Like the heads would get really close, and that was the joy of it. And guess what happened? Spoiler alert: they did eventually get together, and I completely lost interest. So I think that sometimes these comments, they come from like a place of readers, like they just want that couple to get together, but
yeah,
actually it is a book and it is there to keep people reading and to kind of try and keep their attention. And I think you do that really well, because you do
yeah,
spend the book going, I mean, you know, yes, they probably will, but like the will they, won't they, the push pull, the
yeah.
misunderstandings, like that's
And
what makes rom-coms really fun, isn't it?
yeah, and I really like to write imperfect characters and like people who are a bit flawed and a bit messy, maybe not always 100% likable as well. Because that's also the kind of characters that interest me most to read about. And that it's that kind of like messy imperfection that I think kind of drives some of the plot sometimes and stops them from doing, the obvious sensible thing of, just telling someone they like them.
Yeah, but honestly, this is real people, isn't it? Like, anybody who's reading your books and then writing a review, these characters are not perfect. Like, have any of them actually reflected on like the stuff? All of us have done stupid things. Like, have you ever sent a text message and then like immediately wish you could take it back? You realize you've written something super inappropriate at the end of it. Like, you've put "love you" and you're like, oh God, this is my boss, or this is like
Yeah.
somebody I don't know that well. Like I think we all do silly things, and sometimes I've written stuff in books and an editor's gone, this is a bit implausible. And I'm like, what, that thing that I did when I was 16? Yeah, totally implausible.
Yeah.
I think we've
Yeah, it's,
all,
it's
and I
absolutely
think,
dreadful that my teenage characters would ever go to a house party. I
yeah,
I
I
would
know.
never have done such a thing. I'm sure no 16-year-old has ever
I
done such a
know.
thing.
A couple of people, like some adults, have reviewed my YA book, like, because Mina, I don't think she does drink. Like her sister says she's not allowed, from what I remember. I wrote it
Yeah,
and I can't remember. But some adults are like, why was she in a bar? And I was like, because it was a teenage night. Those things,
yeah,
exist. Like they do those. And also some teenagers do go out underage. I mean, I'm not condoning that behavior, but it does happen. And I
yeah,
think that sometimes teenagers in books are held to a standard that actually isn't what real teenagers are like. And that
yeah,
teenagers, the whole point is exploring and trying stuff out. And you know, figuring out what you want to do. And like, I go out on many, many less nights out than I did when I was a teenager, because I sort of explored it then and realized actually I'd rather read a book with a cup of tea now.
Yeah.
Like I've been there and done
in
that.
Do You Ship It, they actually go to a house party, and one of the other girls is like, she goes along with Karis, and she's like, oh, my mum's given us like, you know, this bottle of gin and lemonade to drink at the party. And they like pour each other a glass, and then they drink it, and they're like, that is just lemonade. Like,
Yeah.
mum's tricked us.
Oh,
You know?
that's amazing. That is what a mum would do. I once went out for cocktails with my friend, and I think we maybe weren't quite 18. And we ordered a cocktail really
Maybe.
proud. We ordered a cocktail really proudly, got back to our table and drank it. We're like, there's no alcohol in this. So the bartender had seen through us and given us the non-alcohol version of the cocktail.
Yeah.
So, you know, these things usually sort themselves out. But I like that. I want to see teens going to house parties, sometimes having a good time, sometimes not, realizing that our parents will try and protect us from this and give us a bottle of lemonade, you know. So your overarching approach to romance is obviously kind of a bit like my approach to plotting. I don't know what's going to happen, so I can't plot it out because I don't know till I write it. What about the individual romantic scenes? Because I think when I'm reading your stuff and like they're about to kiss and I'm holding my breath and it feels so tense and atmospheric, have you got any tips for doing that? Like, how do you make individual romantic scenes so romantic, as it were?
It's a good question, because those are usually the moments that I do know about when I'm going into the book. So like the big kiss scene in Do You Ship It, like I was like, okay, so this is the premise, these are the characters, and then this is the big kiss scene that's going to happen, and we'll figure out how to get there. And like I'll know how, like, the emotions that I want my characters to have, like, you know, if they're kind of really swept up in the romance of it all and just, you know, kind of can't help themselves, or are willing to put it all on the line and risk it, and, you know, have that moment of a kiss, or and, you know, risk rejection, but they can't live with the what if otherwise, or if they really like, it's really heated and a bit angry, and then, you know, it's that thin line between love and hate where they're like, oh no, we're not actually angry, we're, you know, and it'll be kind of very emotion driven, and I will just kind of picture the dynamic of the characters in my head like a movie scene, and that's kind of how I go about that, rather than thinking too hard about it, because that emotion that I want to have will drive like all the scenes around it to build it up and make it feel, you know, I guess, so immersive or whatever.
Yeah, I think that must be it, because as you were saying emotion, it was like a light bulb. I was like, yeah, that's what it is in those scenes that you write. Like, you really feel what the characters are feeling, and I think it's the prolonging it and not being afraid to just let those feelings kind of simmer for a little bit. And like, they don't kiss immediately, do they? Like, you have a
Yeah.
little build up and you have the inner monologue and the feelings, and then it really lands when it does land. That's really cool.
I
Thank you.
guess,
That's
because
good advice.
I kind of want it to be grounded in something.
Yeah.
Like, like, I don't want to give any spoilers for Do You Ship It, but for instance, with the kissing booth, you know, Al's had this really long time crush on Noah. So for her, this has been such a long time coming, but it's also that nervousness of, I've never kissed a boy before. I don't like this has got such a big build up in my head, and I'm just generally nervous about everything, rather than like, oh, I get to kiss this boy.
That's really
And that
relatable, isn't
it
it?
just being that.
Yeah, because I think at a first kiss, like the reality of it is that there will be lots of things going through your head. And that's obviously, and you weren't that far off Elle's age, I presume, when you wrote the book. Like, what
Yeah.
would the age difference have been between you?
I was 15, 16 when I wrote it, because I was like smack in the middle of my GCSEs, which was, I guess, a really smart time to start writing a book.
Yeah, that's procrastination at its finest, isn't it?
So I was 16, because I remember I needed them to drive in America, just like for ease of storyline.
Oh, the amount of times that I do that, like the ages are dictated by just plot. Yeah, they need to drive, so let's make them 17 in my
Yeah.
UK stuff. So let's talk a bit about the kissing booth then. So when you started writing it, did you have any idea that it was going to be something you wanted to try to get published? Like, tell us the publication journey story, like from kind of idea to, oh my goodness, it's a massive sensation.
So I'd always really liked writing, and I was always the kid at school who, when you'd given like a a creative writing task in English lesson, you know, I'd want to stay through break time and carry on. And then when I went to comprehensive, my parents gave me an old laptop to like do my homework on, and I would use it to write stories. And then when I was 15, I found Wattpad, and you know, it was this free story sharing platform. I was reading on it, and I could see that there were basically other teenagers out there who also liked writing and were posting their books on there. And I was like, well, I could do that. I do stuff like this. I like writing. So I started the Kissing Booth, just posted it on there, and I was like, oh, you know, maybe someone will enjoy it. But I was also posting it for fun for me. And I remember thinking, because I'd always thought it would be nice to be published and be an author, because I knew that I like writing. But I also thought it was like this very serious thing that you did when you were really old, like 40.
Yeah, that's so old.
Yeah, and I'm but a young, sprightly 20-something currently. I turned 30 in about 2 weeks, so I'm milking.
Oh, do you see? I'm already in that ancient 40 category. Like I just hit that. So.
But I just thought like this is a serious thing that only happens like when you're aged and experienced.
Yes.
So maybe one day. And I remember like I'd looked into some publishing houses and literary agents, but I was like, yeah, that's definitely something that's not for me now. And like I didn't even want to study creative writing at uni. I went on and did physics, so it was just like very much a hobby. But the Kissing Booth just really took off, and I remember like I used to have like slight cliffhangers at the end of each chapter, because you know it will be say 3 to 5 days between each upload of a new chapter, so I'd want to keep people interested and coming back for the next one. And I used to post in the evening because I knew a lot of my audience were American readers. And in the morning, I would wake up before school and I would like read some of the comments. And I woke up after like a particularly big cliffhanger where Leah's just caught Elle and Noah together. And I had like my email inbox was just flooded with like 500-600 comments overnight. And that was like the first time it had like really taken off. And I was like, oh, I can't like read all this just before school anymore. And I would come home and like dedicate hours to trying to go through the comments and the messages, because I wanted to reply to people. And it got to a point where I could, that wasn't sustainable. So I would just read some of them. And I was really lucky that at one point I happened to open one of these emails, and it was a private message from an editor at Random House saying,
oh my goodness,
we'd like to publish your book. At which point I like freak out. I remember I ripped the charger out of the laptop. I ran into my parents and I was like, oh my God, someone wants to publish my book. And they're like, okay, let's look her up on LinkedIn, check she's legit. She was. So she'd given me her email and stuff. So we composed this email to set up a call. Me and my dad like have this call with her, and she invites us down to the London office the next week, which was convenient because it was October half term, just after I'd sent off my UCAS applications. And we just go into the room, and I remember there was like these 2 giant stacks of books, and they're like, yeah, you can just have those, like take some books, take whatever you want. Do you want more? And I was like, where do I sign? This is amazing. And my dad's reading through this 3-book contract that they've offered me, and he's like, let's discuss this force majeure clause, because I deal with IT contracts at work, so I know about this one. But we were just like, yeah, great. I'm getting paid to write, and they're going to publish my book, and it's all like genuinely legit.
And you probably didn't realize as well that like Penguin, you know, Big 5 publisher, they were going to put a lot into this book, and it was going to be made into film. Anybody could have reached out to you, so it seems so serendipitous that it was just the right place. And that's been your publishing home ever since, right?
Yeah, they publish all my YA books. So Do You Ship It is my 15th book.
You're so incredible. Like you're in your 20s and you've done all of this. It's just amazing.
I'm just slightly young, 20 something.
You are. You're over 10 years younger than me. And I do. So when I qualified as a teacher, I think I was 21 or 22, and an author, I won't name them, a male author, presided over the sort of, you know, the graduation ceremony. And at the end, I went to him really nervous, and I was like, I'm writing a book and I'd really like it to get published. And he was like, oh, absolutely not. You're far too young to write a book. Wait until you've got some life experience, come back and have this conversation with me. And honestly, that really put me off. And I think that hearing stories like yours, I'm like, I feel like all the way through being younger, quite a few, certainly not my family. My family was so supportive, and certain teachers were really supportive, but that wasn't the first time I'd heard that message. And I think that you're a prime example of somebody who can be really young, really talented, really you were obviously really tapped into things like Tumblr and Wattpad and like knew what people wanted and you went with it. And to kind of write young people off, I think is really sad. Like,
yeah. I think that was,
obviously there's an element
like,
of luck.
I wouldn't say now that I've done a lot more writing, obviously, like I know, like I know that my writing style has changed slightly, it's evolved, it's improved, but that's kind of inevitable.
Yeah.
And I think that would have been the case even if I'd started writing at 40, you know. But like looking back, I wouldn't change The Kissing Booth because it was, you know, sort of its time, it was of a moment, and it was very reflective of, you know, this teenage experience and all those thoughts and feelings. And that's kind of what I'm writing now. That's still what I'm like tapping into.
Yeah, that's
Rather than
exactly
like
it.
trying to look at it from, and the only thing I do look at from like an adult perspective is
Yeah.
I guess I should have some kind of responsible message at what, like, some, even if it's like a throwaway line about, you know, oh, mum's not actually put any gin in the lemonade she's given us, about like, you know, drinking at a house party. I guess I need to be a responsible big sister to these readers.
I mean, do you though? Because even if I think there's certain stuff, like, you know, without going too much into the nitty gritty of it, during particularly romantic scenes, shall we say, between characters, there are always certain things that I mention because I'm like, actually, if I don't mention this, I feel like somebody could, you know, enter into a situation that they're not prepared for. But I think that if it's something that's just a real situation that teenagers have and they will be familiar with, you don't want to pull them out of the story as well. It's a fine line, isn't it? Between, you don't want it to become some adult pops into the room and says, wait, teenagers, do not drink. It is not good for you. Like, I think teenagers know. And yeah, you can kind of have somebody come in, a character can kind of, you know, bring things down to earth, but you don't want to go too far as well. And when you were 15, I imagine that was the last thing on your mind.
Like, so I'm actually working on my next YA book at the minute, and I'm doing the second draft of it. And again, they go to a house party, but it's like at someone's sister's university, so that, you know, they're kind of feeling older and cooler.
Yeah.
And the big sister's like, look, I want to have a really fun night, so I'm not going to babysit you all and be so like, try and be responsible, but also like, if you need to puke, please make it to the toilet in time because I'm not cleaning that up. And it's very much just like, look, I guess I have to tell you to be responsible, but that's not my job to make sure you are.
Yeah, and that's clever, right? That's a really good way to kind of just flag, as an adult author, I'm aware that, you know, you need to just
I'm not encouraging it, but I'm aware that it's happening. So like, why are we going to pretend it's not?
That's really clever, Beth. I'm going to remember that because it is something I wrestle with. When you're writing YA books, I don't think I realized when I started the Mina books that I would feel this level of responsibility, and like that teenagers are reading these books and using them in some ways to shape their views. It is interesting to kind of navigate that, isn't it? Like, I certainly wouldn't recommend that any teenagers do what some of the ones do in my Dracula retelling. It's like very, very bad idea. And some characters even say to them, do you realize that this sounds incredibly sketchy, what you've agreed to do? And they're like, yeah, but I want to do it anyway. So yeah, I think that, and it's just a prime example though that you were 15 and you took a chance and put yourself out there and put your writing out into the world, like teenagers do. Like teenagers put themselves out there and try things. It's just amazing. Like, it's such a cool story. Like, I'm just kind of in awe of you, Beth, a little bit.
I didn't even used to tell people I was writing. Like, my parents would come into my room and they'd be like, what are you doing? And I'd have the laptop open and I would just like, you know, like Control Shift over to like the other tab about, I'm just playing Farmville on Facebook.
Yeah, of course.
2009, obviously, what else am I going to be doing?
I bet that was such a surprise to everybody you knew at school. Like, I've written a book and it's been published by Penguin. I bet they were like, no, you just, you know, weird Beth, no.
It's because I had a short story published in Bliss magazine.
Oh, did you? That's cool.
Yeah, which was also when I was around 15 and like The Kissing Booth was just starting out as well. And then that summer, because The Kissing Booth had gained a lot of popularity on Wattpad, there was this, I remember it was a government-funded app in Canada, and it was like a series of sort of short videos telling this story about a band, and they wanted 5 writers from Wattpad to each write us like a backstory for the 5 main characters, and they paid me like $250 to do that for one of the characters, which was like really cool. So I remember going to like GCSE results day and like saying to my English teacher, like, hey, I just like, fun fact, I've been writing these books online and actually I've just been paid to write something. Isn't that fun? And then I turned around one day and I was like, guess what, everyone, I've got a book deal. And they were like, I don't think anyone really knew what to say about it because I don't remember. Like, I know that some of my friends, like when I was in sixth form, like a different group of friends who did like me, they read the book, and like I gave a couple of my teachers like signed copies and stuff like that. But I don't like. It's weird now because I've met people who say, "Oh, my brother was in your year at school. I remember him coming home and like telling me all about it and how cool it was." And I was like, "Oh, really?" I don't think we ever had a conversation outside that one time we were paired up in geography in year 9. Like, cool.
It obviously had an impact. Like, I think this is the thing about, I don't know whether you do author visits, but I've done a couple. I don't really have time to do many.
Yeah.
And especially when I do local ones, so for some of the kids, it's like a light bulb moment where you're from Doncaster and you've written a book. Like I thought,
Yeah.
like you said, I thought it was like posh people from down south who were at
Yeah.
least over 60 who were allowed to write books, like not somebody who presents as relatively young and in
Yeah.
touch with teenagers. So yeah, I think it is really nice. Like you probably inspired people that you didn't even realize. Like there might be some other authors out there because you did that. You did that first. So the Kissing Booth like came out when you were 16. Then did it?
17. I got
Oh,
my certificate
17.
when I was
And then
17. Yeah.
when was it made into a film? Like what was the that was a little bit later, wasn't
I
it?
was. The film came out in 2018, so I was 23 when it came out.
Yeah.
I was 21 when we were filming it though, so I got the book deal when I was 17, and like 5 months later, 4 or 5 months later, there was a small UK production company who had links with Random House at the time, and they wanted to get to option the rights for it, which is basically where like this company will hire the rights for say 18 months or 2 years, or they'll rent them, and if they don't like make the movie or the TV show in that time, then you can get the rights back and sell them to someone else, or they can pay to extend that option. So even if it doesn't get made, you kind of get a bit of money for it. And they were really aware of the audience of Wattpad and that they were really online. Because I remember them saying that they envisaged it on something like Amazon Prime or Netflix, even before like that was a household name so much. And I was like, I don't know anyone who uses that. Okay, I guess.
Netflix, what's that?
And then 2 years later, of course, like everyone's got Netflix. And they brought Vince Marcello, our brilliant scriptwriter and director, on board. I had a conversation with him over Skype, like really early on, and he just fully understood the characters. And I was like, okay, I can trust you to tell this story, even if it's like different. So in the movies, there's all the like the dance mat stuff, which isn't in the books, but works really well for a visual medium. And I loved that addition, and it was just so fun. And it still felt very much like my characters. So optioning the rights and getting the script all happened quite quickly. And then I would kind of not hear anything for long chunks of time. And then they'd be like little snippets of news, or they'd say, hey, here's the script. And then they'd disappear again for 5 months. And then I remember, because I had a job at one of the big 5 consultancy firms out of uni, and I only stayed there a couple of months. I quit quite soon because it wasn't for me. And one of the producers had texted me, and he was like, oh, you free for a call? I got some news. And I sort of snuck out of the office on a coffee break to the little Costa around the corner. And he phoned me and was like, we're doing it with Netflix. Like, we've got Netflix. And everything kind of happened very quickly in terms of filming then. So February, I went out for a week to Cape Town, and that was all the time that my job would allow me to take off, was 5 days, because it was busy season.
Thanks, job.
Yeah. It's like my dad flew out with me, and he got to meet Molly Ringwald, which my mum was really jealous of, and my sister was really jealous of, because she's a big 80s film fan as well. I remember like seeing we got to set, and Joey and Joel, who play the main character, Joey King and Joel Courtney, who play Al and Lee, the sort of main characters and best friend, they were just like chatting and hanging out and goofing around. And I didn't know if they were performing as Al and Lee or if they were just being themselves, because they were so perfectly cast and the chemistry was there. Like it was just so obvious. It was amazing. And like the whole thing was so surreal. Like I just loved every minute of it. And people would keep saying to me, you don't have to like stay. We're just literally filming this same scene of 3 lines about 18 times, and then we're going to move the cameras, and then we're going to do it all again another 18 times. I was like, yeah, it's magical. Like, why would I leave? This is incredible.
Yeah, it's such an experience, isn't it? Like,
yeah. And then again, there will be months after
dream.
that where the updates I get is like, yeah, we're in color grading now. We're like, oh, it's been sent off to subtitles. And I'd be like, okay. And then like I got the trailer, and I remember watching it when it came out on YouTube then in the office at work, at a job I did actually enjoy, and everyone like crowding around my screen, and like the link getting sent round to everyone else, and everyone was just so excited about it. It was really fun.
It's amazing. Yeah. And I think when you look at the cast now, like that, I don't know, was that their first jobs or like early on into their careers? Certainly.
Yeah, I know Joey had done quite a few projects, but and Joel had done a couple of films as well. But yeah, it was kind of, you know, early-ish, I guess.
Yeah.
Not so much for Joey, because she'd been acting since she was really young, but
you've been part of that. Like, you've been part of their journey as well. It's really cool.
But also, like, looking back, I think, like, sometimes I think I wish I'd like done more at the time to kind of capitalize on it all, instead of like sit. Like, I took a couple of days off work and I would just sit, like, my phone battery would die really quickly, so I was just sat basically on a dining chair pulled up next to the wall, plugged into a charger permanently, just like refreshing Instagram comments, because like there was just so much stuff online about it, and I was like, I just gobbled it all up because it was really cool. And if I thought more pragmatically, I would have been like, you know, trying to pursue stuff and putting myself out there a bit more, I guess. And
you were really young.
I was just like, looking back, I was like, who let 23-year-old me have like a hit Netflix movie? I didn't know what I was doing. Like,
well, this is it. And like, I think even now, if I got a movie deal, I wouldn't know what to do.
Yeah.
Like, I wouldn't. And I think in the moment, you just make the best of what you can do. And like, you're thinking now with your knowledge of all the things you've seen since, but like at that moment, that was like the thing that you did, wasn't it? And it's amazing. I'm really pleased for you that it seems to have like been an amazing launch for a whole career, really. And this is the kind of stuff you've carried on writing. Like, is this sort of what you envisage that you would like to write? Like, if you've been given the choice right at the start?
Yeah, like I don't. If I like, well, like if my editor had said, "Can you write a sports romance?" and I just wanted to be a published author and I didn't care what I was writing about too much or anything, I would have said, yeah, and I would have researched, I don't know, ice hockey or whatever, and done that. But I only write the kind of books that I want to read, because I think otherwise I think you would be able to tell with my writing that my heart's not in it and it would fall flat. So I'm only writing about characters that I find interesting or that I would personally want to read about, and situations that I think are fun and make for a fun story.
That's great, because it does happen, I think, doesn't it, where some authors, like, they kind of get pigeonholed and it's like, oh, we only want you to do this kind of book now. Like, you are still writing the stuff that you really want to write and having a load of creative input. Like, that's really cool. I think that's the dream.
So I write a lot of fan fiction as well still, and I get to kind of explore fantasy doing that. And I kind of dabbled in a bit of fantasy then for my own book. So I did write like I think I was supposed to be working on something else, and I just emailed my agent this 134,000 romantasy novel that I'd written out of the blue, and I was like, I've also got an idea for how the sequel would go, but I don't know if we want to do this because this is very much outside my wheelhouse. And then recently, earlier this year, I sent her a witchy rom-com, like small town witch who doesn't believe in magic and the big city warlock sent to bring her wayward coven into line. And I was like, I've also done this, if you'd like this. I know this is outside of my wheelhouse and we don't really publish, like, I don't really do fantasy, but
you're just amazing. You're amazing. You are, honestly. I'm just thinking like, that's like a unicorn of like, I bet every like agent and publisher wants you because you're just so prolific. I mean, I know you went viral early this year because a person who, I don't know whether you want to name or not, said you can't write 2 good books in a year. And I only saw it really later on, because otherwise I would have come right in and been like, how very dare you? I think it's really easy to say, isn't it? It is not possible to do this thing that I know nothing about, but I'm going to say it anyway.
I think also, like, if like everyone's got a different way of writing, so like some people will work on one singular novel for about 3 or 4 years, and like there's nothing wrong with that. That's just how that works for them.
Yeah, exactly.
And like, that's not how I work. I will like I can put a first draft together in a month, which is what happened last year with 2 different books. Like I just write really quickly, and I think that's a bit to do with how, you know, how I've grown up writing a bit of fan fiction as well. I can
but
not
I
get
mean,
18,000 words in a day before, and
yeah,
like that was, you know,
and yeah,
that was just fun, and I enjoyed
yeah.
it, and I, you know, barely stopped to go and use the toilet or make a cup of tea. Um,
And that's the
but
thing, be a bit flippant about it, being more serious. I think it comes from a place of like not understanding that people have different creative processes.
yeah,
And I think different lives as well, like not knowing that some authors work full time, some authors
yeah,
like being an author is my sort of 4th job down the list, and probably the one that I spend the least time on because I do other things and I'm a parent. And I think
yeah,
that obviously, you know, somebody put out a video thinking that it would just be an interesting topic of conversation, but it wasn't actually kind of taking your experience, I mean, how many books you've written into
yeah,
account. And I think the serious question I wanted to ask you out of that was, how do you write a book in a month? Like, I've never done that before. Like, how does that work for you? Is it just because you said you don't plot much?
no.
How is it, just a flurry of inspiration? Is it like bum on seat, so many words a day? How do you do it?
So I'm really bad at like, oh, I need to write 1,000 words today. I need to write 5,000 words today, stuff like that. It'll be more a case of I want to write this scene today. And sometimes I will sit down and I'll be like, right, I don't really know what's happening here, but I understand how a book works and how the story should flow. So I know that like we'll touch base with this character and maybe have like a bit of like them going to school or something like that. So I can transition into the next big scene of the house party or something like that. Like
Yeah.
I've got to set this up and have them invited to the house party, want to go to the party, and then we can get to the party and I can write that scene I actually like have in my head, and we'll figure out like how that build up to the kiss works. And then I'll end up getting like really locked in with the big scenes like that, where I'm like, okay, well, I'll just finish this chapter and then I'll go make a cup of tea. Well, I might as well finish this scene. Always, it's like 4 o'clock now. It's fine. I'll finish this little bit and then I'll go and sort dinner out. And then I'll look up and it's like 8:30 p.m. and I don't know where the time's gone, but I've at least finished that scene that I wanted to do. So that like, there's a good degree of I'm just having fun and I get really locked in and I, you know, bit of time
That's really
blindness.
cool. Like,
And
you
then,
found your life passion and you put
yeah.
all that time and effort into it. It's amazing.
So that, but like, there's also things that I know. So sometimes it is a case of I have to get up, I have to sit at the computer and I have to write today. And it doesn't have to be good. It just has to get me there. And then the editing is where the hard work comes in. And my editor might say, we did not need that scene with them at the school. This can be a paragraph. And I'll be like, yeah, in hindsight, yeah. But I think some of it is practice, some of it is discipline. A lot of it is just I'm enjoying it and I'm having fun. And then there's also a degree of I know how I work. So I'll know that I can sit down and do, you know, 10 hours at my computer nonstop, especially on like a big day. So I will sort of carve out time to do all of my chores and errands in one chunk, because I'm really bad at doing like little things and scattering it all through. So I can't just clean the bathroom sink and then write 500 words and then hoover and then write 1,000 words. I'll have to say, no, I'm setting aside 2 hours to get the housework done. I've got an hour to do the food shop. I've got to go and pick up my prescription. I've got to go and get this done. I've got to drop this over to my parents. So this day is carved out purely for that. I'll have an evening off. And then I've got 4 days where I'm just like working for 10 hours straight. So I kind of accommodate for myself doing that as well.
Yeah, that's really cool.
And then I probably end up getting a little bit burnt out. And
well, yeah, I mean that was less cool. But so the way I write, I've got various freelance jobs essentially, and I teach 1 day a week. So I generally have got like an hour or two a day maybe that I can spend on my own books. So what I have to do is sort of carve up my day into chunks, a little bit like what you said about carving out a day jobs. So if I know that I've got an hour or two to write on my current work in progress, I just know that if I write 1,000 to 2,000 words in that time, that's probably enough to have a book written in a timely fashion. And I think that I am working towards being able to spend a bit more time on writing, but just for me for now, this is where I'm at. And I think it's kind of knowing that if people are sitting there thinking, oh, I can't spend 10 hours a day on a book, but some of the people are thinking, actually, yeah, that would work perfectly for me. I'm going to do what Beth does. I'm going to, because I know Ravina Garon she works a full-time job, and she spends like a whole weekend writing. So she would put in 2 really long days a week. I think kind of the takeaway of writing is, like you said, it takes you 3 to 4 years, fine. It takes you 1 month, fine. Like you get at the end of it. And I talked to some authors and they plot everything out. I talked to some authors like CJ Tudor says she tries to plot and she can't see the book until she starts it. She's got no idea what's going to happen. Like at the end of the day, we all get, I'm just looking around my room filled with books, like we all get to the book regardless. Like you've got a deal, that book is going to be finished and you just find the way to make it work for you.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, because I've only been a full-time author now for about 4 years, maybe 3.5. About 3.5. And so when I was working my full-time job before that, it was very much a case of I'd come home from work, I'd get all my chores done after work, so I'd have the end of the evening and the nighttime free. And I'm a bit of a night owl anyway, so I would like sit and write for a couple of hours in the evening, and then I'd like block out my weekends so that like chores and admin and stuff, they were never getting done on a weekend. That was entirely free, whether I was, coming home to visit or had plans with friends, or I was going to spend 2 days solid writing, and I could give myself those big chunks of time. And sometimes when it was in the evenings, I was staying up till, if I was getting really locked in, I'd stay up till 2 a.m. and I'd think, oh, whoops. Oh, well.
Yeah. I've been there. That doesn't work amazingly well for me because I'm not much of a night owl. I find that at about 9 p.m. my brain stops working, and occasionally I've had a deadline and I've had to stay up till 1 a.m. and the next day I'm just a zombie. But you just do it, don't you? And like publishing, like I feel like it's such a privilege and we're really lucky to be in the position we are. So you just kind of make it work, whatever is going to work, whatever's going to get that book for me, it's like a book every year or two is about what I can manage right now. Whatever I can do to keep that going until my tiny person's a bit bigger and I can dedicate a bit more time to it. So another thing I want to ask you about, I'm just checking if there's anything because we kind of jumped all over the place. Oh, that was it, about adult books. So you've written, your 4th adult book, is that right? Is about to come out?
Good question.
I'm looking.
5th.
Oh, 5th adult book's about to come out.
I wasn't sure either.
So what is the difference in approach? Obviously, I'm assuming you don't do any more plotting for your adult books, but how do you shift your brain from adult to YA? What is the main difference?
I think it's like there's different degrees of like freedom that the characters have. Like for YA books, there is no pressure for them to be like I don't have to give them a job so that they can pay their council tax and their water bill. And I don't need to figure out what they to some degree. I don't need to figure out what their living situation is. Are they in a house share flat because they live in central London and it's very expensive and they're a single person, or are they, out in the countryside somewhere and are married? There's just like a different setup, I guess. That's like that fundamental groundwork for the character to be their jumping off point. But then on the flip side, like my adult characters they've kind of got other freedoms that my teenage characters wouldn't have, and they're different people and they're kind of not in that coming of age stage of figuring out who they are quite as much, and how things work, and maybe the emotions aren't maybe as big, because like when you're in school, like failing a Spanish vocab quiz can feel like the end of the world, whereas like in an adult book it would be like losing your job is the equivalent emotion of that. Like
that's really interesting.
Not that one is less than the other, it's just that they're different for different characters.
Yeah, that's really cool thing about, because I was thinking, the age thing is kind of an obvious, but I've not really thought about it's the life situation, but it's also how you react. Like I do remember feeling so sick once in a maths test that I actually thought I was going to throw up and had to go to the bathroom. And like as an adult, the equivalent of that would be a bigger life event, wouldn't it? I guess
like a job interview or something.
Yeah, exactly. That's really cool because I'm toying with the idea of writing adult fiction, so I'm just kind of trying to figure out, because part of me is thinking, I can write steamier scenes. but also it's a bit deeper than that, isn't it? I've not really thought about it. It's the whole life. It's not just it can get a bit more basic. It's the whole package of the character, isn't it?
Yeah, like my book Faking it basically follows main character Sophie over a year of events of her friends getting engaged and housewarming parties and weddings and stuff like that, and baby showers. So like all the big kind of adult life events. And she is very much like the single friend and hates being the single friend. So she's going on lots of dates, trying to figure it out, and feeling really left behind, seeing all of her friends and her family like meet these milestones. So she ends up like recruiting a fake boyfriend off a dating app to help her through all these things. But she's also there like complaining to someone about the cost of a hen do that she's got to go on and the day that she's got to take off work to do that. And the fact that it's not as much of a burden for her friends who are in relationships because they get to share the costs of all these things. And she doesn't. And she's kind of struggling with that stuff. And that's not, maybe that in itself is not like a big story, but it's also like a fundamental part of her character because it influences how she sees the world, how she approaches her relationships with other people, and is a very real thing as well to a lot of people. So I was like,
yeah, do you know what?
Like, just throw that out the window and ignore it.
Sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt you. I'm just like, I really relate to you, Beth. Like, as you're talking about this character, like, I've been on the flip side of that. I've been with my now husband since I was 17.
Yeah.
So I feel like I'm just relating so intensely to the side of being on a hen do, and also it's like being away from my son for a weekend is something I have to factor in, and the cost is always like eye-watering. So it's just so relatable. As you were saying it, I just felt the relatability of it in my bones. And then somebody who is single is probably feeling that relatability even more. And I think you do that so well. Like I can say, oh, you write the romance and it's lovely and I enjoy that. But I think that your characters are just real people having real problems and real dilemmas, and obviously you do that for your YA and your adult so well that you kind of separate them out, and the YA issues will be this and the adult will be that.
Yeah. My favorite review of Faking it was like a 2-star review on NetGalley, and because I try not to look at the reviews on Amazon and Goodreads and stuff. Like I never go on Goodreads, to be fair, but I'm always like, oh, but this is the first time anyone's read the book, so I want to see what the early reviews on NetGalley say. And someone was like 2 stars, like the main character's insufferable, she's really annoying, but she does remind me a lot of all my single friends. And I'm like, well, my job is done, like, because that's
my jaw, like I didn't know that happened in real life. My jaw, I feel like it actually just genuinely dropped. I
was like, I'm so sorry you hate your single friends, I guess.
Yeah, I but I think that person needs to reflect on their own life and then probably read some of your books.
She feels like a real person if she's reminded you of those people. So
yeah, isn't it great how a review that they thought was really negative, you've walked away like, actually you totally got it, that this book isn't for you, but you totally got me. That was so good. I just feel like I've soaked up so much from you, Beth. Thank you. I've got a silly question that I want to ask you at the end. I always like to do something a bit frivolous, so I need to know the important subjects. It's romance themed quickfire.
Excellent.
So the first instinct that comes into your head for each of these things. So not including your own, other people's books, movies. So your favorite movie couple?
I'm gonna go with, oh my god, I can't remember their names, but Set It Up. Glenn Powell and what are their characters called?
I don't know, but she's Leah Thompson's daughter in real life, isn't she?
Yes.
That actress.
Yeah.
Yeah, I can completely
them. They're my favorites. I love, like,
yeah,
that's brilliant. A movie I can watch time and time again, and it's always great.
I love Glenn Powell. He's become one of my favorite rom-com actors.
Yeah.
Best book couple?
I'm gonna go Elizabeth Bennet and Mr. Darcy. A classic.
Can't beat that answer, I don't think. Best movie kiss?
Oh.
It's hard, isn't it? Because my brain's going to the obvious ones, like Spider-Man.
Yeah, I was going to be like, obviously, like the classic iconic Spider-Man kiss, but would it be my favorite? Can I say, instead of favorite movie kiss, Peter Kavinsky in To All the Boys, when he like puts his hand in Lara Jean's pocket and like spins around?
Oh, yeah.
That's the equivalent.
Yeah, okay. Yeah. And actually, that's got a perfectly you vibe as well, so I get that. What about a couple who've got the most chemistry on screen?
Emma Swan and Captain Hook, Killian Jones in Once Upon a Time.
Yeah. Okay. Good answer. And have you got a favorite romance book?
Oh, so I think the one I go for at the minute is The End Crowns All by B. Fitzgerald. It's
I need to try that.
it's like a Trojan War Cassandra reimagining, and it's about Cassandra and Helen. And honestly, I've been thinking about it since I read it last year. Like, it's just beautiful.
Is that the green one, or is that the blue one?
One.
Okay, the blue one. I'm
Well,
so behind.
I have just received Bee's new green book, A Beautiful Evil, which I'm very excited to read once I'm off deadline.
Yeah, well, that's the thing, isn't it? It'll just be like over your head, like hanging there waiting for you until you're ready. That's awesome. Thank you, Beth. You did really well at the quickfire round. Normally people, I ask them quickfire and they either panic and can't think of anything, or they give me like a 10-minute dissertation on each one. You did that very well. So the last thing I want to ask you is, what are you working on now? And is there anything you can tell us about what's coming next?
So I'm currently working on my next YA rom-com novel, which I don't think I could actually talk too much about, but it will be fun and flirty, and it's a bit enemies to lovers as well, which I'm
nice.
And I've also got my next adult rom-com coming out next month. It's called The Layover, and it follows 3 strangers who get stuck overnight at an airport on their way to the same destination wedding. The maid of honor, the groom's work wife / best friend, and the bride's brother, and they all want to break up the wedding for their own reasons, and they don't necessarily all agree with each other. It's just about messy.
I pre-ordered it, but I'm going on holiday in August, so I think what I need to do is save it until I'm actually sitting in the airport reading it, and it'll be like the perfect promo for it. I'll just talk to everybody about it when I'm reading it. Like,
I did a lot of thorough research on Orly Airport Terminal. I think it was Terminal 2.
I wondered what you were going to say then. Research about different.
Well, I did send my friend a voice note about like the size of the toilets, and then I used that in one of the scenes in the book.
Amazing! I can't wait. That is so cool. Thank you so much, Beth. Please, everybody, if I haven't convinced you already from this interview, go and read Beth's books, because they're just a masterclass in romance, in comedy,
thank you so much,
in real characters. They really are. Honestly, you are just like, you're an absolute gem of a person and an author. So please do go and read them. Thank you so much, everyone, for watching. Thank you, Beth, for coming on. I've really enjoyed talking to you. I think we've gone for nearly an hour, which is probably a record. So shows how much we have to say. Thank you so much, everyone, and hopefully I'll see you in the next video. Bye.
Bye.